Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Winchester City Council's Planning Committee, taking place in the Walton Suite at Winchester Guildhall. It's Wednesday, the 14th of August 2024, and the time is 9:30 in the morning. My name is Councillor Jane Rutter, and I'm Chair of the Planning Committee. To my right sits my Vice Chair, Councillor Jonathan Williams. Around the table, we have the other elected members of the committee, and we are supported today by a number of officers. Lorna Hutchings from the planning team, Daniel Lucas, our legal advisor, case officers, who will change with each item, and Claire Buchanan from Democratic Services, who supports the committee and operates the recording equipment. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded to the Council's YouTube channel. Subtitles are available, and advice on how to turn these on is set out on our website. Please can I remind everyone to ensure that your mobile phones and any other electronic devices are on silent or preferably turned off entirely. In the unlikely event that it is necessary to evacuate the building, the fire alarm will sound. Please follow all the instructions given to you by our team. Please make sure you've looked at the handout provided on your chairs or on the information slides displayed as you walked in and during the breaks for further guidance about this meeting. To ensure the smooth running of the meeting, I ask that nobody calls out from the back of the room during the proceedings. In accordance with the public speaking protocols of the meeting, those who have registered to speak will be able to address the meeting for their allotted time. If there is any disruption of the proceedings and the committee is not respected, it may be necessary to temporarily adjourn the meeting. Finally, can I welcome members of the public to the meeting? Those of you who have registered to speak, I will call you forward when it is your turn to make your contribution. Members of the committee may ask you questions of clarification, so please remain at the microphone until after members' questions. The microphone is turned on by pressing the button on the base of the unit, and a timer will appear on the screen to remind you of your remaining time. Turning now to the agenda. Claire, do we have any apologies and deputy members, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Apologies for absence received from Councillor Clear with Councillor Pett deputising and from Councillor White with Councillor Lee deputising. Thank you.
Welcome both Councillor Lee, Councillor Pett. Now we have disclosures of interest, members. Do we have any disclosures of interest today? Councillor Ashwell.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a ward member for item number 8. And for item number 6, I actually know the resident who lives in the cottage, so I wish not to take part in that.
Okay, so you'll leave the room for discussion of number 6. And number 8, you're telling us that you have not predetermined this in any way, not discussed it with anybody. Good. Any others? Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Chair. I'm the ward councillor for the items 6 and 7. I have visited the sites. I have not discussed it with the residents or the parish council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Small.
I'm ward councillor for item number 8, and I'm also ward councillor for the same parish council that's discussing item number 6, but I haven't discussed anything with anybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much. No further disclosures of interest. No, thank you. So the minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 17th of July, are on our agenda for approval. Can I hear that those are agreed, please? Agreed. Thank you. Now we look at the update sheet, and is it agreed that we accept this as an addendum to the report, members?
Agreed.
Agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Now we turn to our planning applications, and the first item on our agenda, item number 6, is at the Post Office, Winchester Road, Waltham Chase. And the officer presenting is Cameron Taylor. Good morning, Cameron. Would you like to give us your presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair. But before I start my presentation, I'd just like to note, so within the update sheets, just clarification. So we've got the amended conditions, then also the addition of condition 17, which is for restricting of permitted development rights, classes A, B, and C. This is class A, which sort of revolves around extensions, enlargement to the dwelling itself. Class B typically is for dormer windows, and class C is for roof lights. And further, I would just like to note an error on the update sheet with regards to the additional representation, which notes for slow worms. It notes condition 10 in that, but it should be condition 7. So the presentation is for the demolition of the existing building and erection of 4 dwellings with access, parking, and associated works at the post office in Waltham Chase. Here at the location plan, site marked by the red outline. I'll note that the site itself is situated to the west of Winchester Road. Large notes of additional streets of Ashley Gardens to the west of the site itself and Chase Farm Close to the southeast. And here we have an aerial photograph of the site. Again, the site is marked by the red outline where we can see the residential nature of the area, and I'll just highlight another background development of poplars just situated to the east of the site itself. Next, we have the proposed site plan with a pair of semi-detached dwellings fronting Winchester Road, which are plots 1 and 2, which is where the mouse cursor are here, followed by plots 3 and 4 situated to the rear, which are detached dwellings, and the parking to the dwellings itself being situated between these plots. Next, we have the proposed drainage plan, with the red marking the foul drainage and foul water drainage, and the blue marking the surface water drainage. I'll note within the area that Southern Water are within the next 5 years looking to update the system in order to be able to sort of accommodate the existing and new and larger developments within the area itself. Next, we have the plots 1 and 2, with the front elevation being the top, which these are the ones which front Winchester Road itself. And we've got the side elevation at the bottom. I'll note on both sets of plans a dashed line which shows the outline of the post office itself. I'll note within the side elevation that where the mouse cursor currently is, this flat elevation here is what fronts Winchester Road. Here we have the rear and floor plans for plots 1 and 2, with these being the 2-bedroom plots on the site, followed by the plot 3 elevations and the plot 3 floor plans, which these are the 3-bed plots. Here are the plot 4 elevations. I'll note similarities in the dwelling itself. However, there is a slight change with regards to the attached garage, with plot 4 being situated slightly closer to the front than that of plot 3. Along with that, there is the relocation of the garage door, which on plot 3 is situated to the side on the south elevation, whilst on plot 4 it is to the rear. And here we have the plot 4 floor plans, which they say are similar to that of plot 3, with the only change being the location of the garage itself. Here we have a section through the site, the top being that of the existing and the bottom being proposed, where the site itself does end at a higher level than that at the front. However, where the proposed plots 3 and 4 are situated, these are actually at a lower level than that of plot 1 and 2. Next, we've got the photos of the site. We've got the views of the building itself from Winchester Road, where I note the hoarding around the site itself, followed by a view from the rear of the existing building towards the neighbouring properties to the west, followed by a view looking towards the northern boundary of the neighbouring property, and then bottom photo is that looking towards the south, where this fence is that which adjoins the post office cottage, which is the neighbouring property to the south. That concludes the recommendation, with the offer recommendation being for approval as the proposal is considered to comply with the local policy, where I note the loss of commercial premises. This application had the fallback position, which is noted within the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We now move to public speaking, and we have from the Parish Council, Councillor Margaret Jones. Good morning, Councillor Jones. Welcome. And you will have 3 minutes, and you know how to turn on the microphone, don't you? Just press the button. Yes, please.
Does it start? Right. So I'm chair of the parish council and I've lived in the village all my life. I know the site well. It is an importance to the street scene of Waltham Chase, and its buildings date back before 1900s. It's been used as a garage, petrol station, shop and post office. The parish council feel the existing buildings should be retained, refurbished unless there is an overriding reason this cannot be done for structural reasons. In 2022, permission was granted to return the building to a dwelling, so why demolish? Your urban design team failed to understand why the application includes demolition and objects. Environmental Health commented no development shall take place unless a scheme to deal with contamination is approved due to the historic fuel tanks, pumps and garage workshop. The gap between the neighbour and post office building is too narrow, also commented on by Urban Design. The parking provided will not be sufficient for the homeowners, visitors or deliveries. Plots 3 and 4 will have to juggle their vehicles to get in and out and turn around, and only possible if there is no visitor parking. There's a similar development opposite Morgan's Garage by the developer, which exits onto the Winchester Road, and it has been witnessed where delivery or taxis pull into the drive, cannot turn round, then reverse onto the main road. This road is used by children walking to the primary school or the local recreation area. When considering the Morgan's application a few months ago, this planning committee recommended a crossing be provided across Winchester Road due to the amount of children walking the route, but did not take any proposal for this to be achieved. So they know how dangerous this road is for pedestrians. Urban Design questioned the driveway and say it should provide a passing place and a safe route for pedestrians and cycles. The builders attended a meeting with residents but only made minimal changes, reducing the height slightly, and despite being invited, did not come back to another meeting. Residents requested the properties at the rear be bungalows, turned sideways onto the site for privacy. These new homes will be overbearing and intrusive to the properties in Ashley Gardens and cause loss of light, and the site will be cramped. The windows of the rear properties look directly onto the windows of homes in Ashley Gardens. There's no amenity area and a planting plan should be agreed with hedging retained. Wildlife currently on the site should be protected. The site is below road level and during wet weather there is flooding, with the post office and adjoining cottage having flooding problems. There should be sufficient provision for wheelie bins on collection day so they don't block the footpath. Our council recognises the principle of development but objects to the design and density. Please take into account the many objections.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for the parish council representative? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that. Could you say a bit more about what you talked about with the developers and what they didn't take forward in terms of your issues?
Yeah, the main objectors were the residents in Ashley Gardens, and they are directly overlooked by this, and it will be a lot closer than it looks on any of those pictures. They'll be directly looking into the homes. They are quite small back gardens. So it was the density and coming out onto the main road. Like I say, there is a similar development by the same builder, and it is a nightmare with people coming in and out onto the main road. That is a dangerous road.
Chair, and can you just expand a bit more on the flooding issues in the area, which I know of concern?
Yeah, there's a lot of flooding from, well, it comes down the top of the village through. The recreation ground is very wet. The ditches all overflow. We've got manholes that come up in the middle of the road, just further up, and it all floods down, overflows the ditches from the recreation ground, comes down. The post office is lower, so the water goes down in there, and the cottage next door, they all get flooding. And Viewcroft, there's several of the roads. As it goes down the village, it gets worse.
Thank you. I think we can raise that with subsequent speakers. Thank you very much. Any further questions of clarification, members? Councillor Pett.
Thank you, Chair. Just one quick one. In the slides a moment ago, we saw a picture of two vehicles parked in front of what is now the old shop. Is that a safe place to park there? Is it possible to park on the main road?
No, when the owner at the post office did park theirs down near their house, but there's not going to be that space, and it is on a very steep slope. And so anybody who was visiting the shop would park on the main road.
Thank you.
Can I just, oh, councillor Laming, thank you.
Thank you. I'm concerned with what you said about putting the bins out and the children. Is that a main thoroughfare to the
Yes.
school?
Yes,
Where's the nearest crossing? So that
there
is the
is no-
school on the
yeah.
side of the road where the houses are going to be built, or is it the other side?
There is no official crossing. They take pot luck, and because the village hall has at the back a boardwalk with a safe walking route up to the school, anybody coming up the village will park in the area will pass over from the village hall up to, say, the recreation ground. That's where people walk and cross over and then go up the hall.
Thank you.
envisage
Can
there
I just
being-
confirm that it's a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit on that road? It is. Okay, sorry, councillor Laming, you had a second question?
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Are you envisaging an increase in the number of children using the school?
Sorry?
Are you envisaging an increase in the number of people using the school?
Well, we have a large development going at the top of the road, which was where Morgan's Garage were, and that's for 60, 80 houses.
But is that the same side of the road?
The other side of the road.
Yeah.
But
Thank you.
they will all come down and walk up to the recreation ground.
Okay, thank you. So there's no official crossing in that area at all?
No, the trouble with the village is it's into, you've got the main road which cuts the village, so you're always getting people want to walk from one side of the village to the other.
I think crossings are a county council issue, councillor Laming, and something that the parish council does
Yeah,
need to take up
I'm
with.
really worried about the footpath.
I understand what you're
No.
saying, councillor Laming.
We
Thank you
have
very much.
taken it up from
Yes,
there.
well, that's
Not very often.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And I don't think there are any. Oh, councillor Langford Smith. I hope it's a question of clarification of what's
It
already
is
been.
indeed. Thank you, Chair. I note that the building was closed permanently for a short while prior to the application coming forward for permitted development. Do you think that COVID had an impact on the building standing empty?
Totally. It was the only thing that caused it, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. You may switch off the mic and return to your seat. Thank you. And our second public speaker is Jacob Goodenough, the agent, I think. Good morning, Mr. Goodenough. You also have 3 minutes, and the time will start when you start speaking. If you could turn on the microphone as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman and members. The shop and post office ceased operations permanently in October 2021, and the associated apartment has remained unoccupied since May 2022. Since the site ceased operations, the services it provided have been successfully relocated to the village store, including the post office. Despite a thorough marketing effort to sell or lease the premises as a going concern, no interest has been forthcoming. The property has continued to deteriorate, making it clear that a new approach is necessary for the site. The proposed development for 4 dwellings offers a viable and beneficial alternative, including the opportunity for decontamination of the former petrol station use that you heard about earlier. The existing and emerging local plan for Winchester both acknowledge the role and function of Waltham Chase. The emerging plan identifies a requirement to accommodate a proportion of the development needs of the district through windfall development in the village. This project aligns with the principles of a brownfield first approach to development, where it is located within the settlement boundary of Waltham Chase and is consistent with the policy goals for the area. With emerging changes to national policy and a renewed effort to significantly boost the supply of homes in sustainable locations, regenerating sites like this one is essential to meeting the district's housing needs. The proposal will deliver 4 smaller homes, 2 and 3 bedrooms. They'll be suitable for first-time buyers, young families and downsizers alike, where the housing needs are greatest. Parking is in accordance with the adopted standards for the area. The proposed development has been carefully designed in consultation with officers, and adjustments have been made at the request of officers and in response to comments received during the application. This has included reducing building heights to improve those relationships with neighbouring properties, demonstrating a clear commitment from my client to deliver a proposal that integrates well and maintains privacy and amenity. We note the addition of the new condition restricting permitted development rights, and my client supports this wholeheartedly. In summary, this proposal not only addresses the current state of neglect of the site, but also contributes positively by providing new housing, supporting local regeneration. The proposal will not result in loss of an essential service, as this has already been replaced locally, and because there is no demand for the site as a going concern. Also, the site already benefits from extant permission for residential use. In closing, I'd like to express my thanks to the officers for their work throughout this application, and to members for their time today considering this application. The proposal represents a thoughtful and sustainable approach to development that will visually enhance the appearance of the site and contribute positively to the housing needs of the area, in line with the adopted development plan, taking a brownfield first approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have questions of clarification for the developer? Councillor Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You may rule this out of order, but I'll give it a go. I wonder if you could just tell me, please, the viability of the development of the site is based on 4 properties, 2-storey. Is it essential for the viability of the development to have the 4? Could you reduce it to less? And could there be bungalows of 3 and 4?
So the application before you is for 4 dwellings, and in terms of the properties at the rear, we have reduced those to a sort of chalet bungalow form in response to neighbour comments, and that was shown on the presentation. So dormer style windows. We looked closely at the separation distances between those properties and those on the properties to the rear, and those were within adopted guidelines, so that the separation distance we consider is acceptable. The change in levels between those properties means that our dwellings are set lower than the properties to the rear. So in terms of direct overlooking, you have the adequate separation distance and a change in levels with boundary treatments that would ensure that that's acceptable, and officers concur with that position.
So I'm just thinking about the contamination costs. The cleanup is going to be not cheap, and therefore, what is the viability of your proposals dependent to pay for that on the number of properties you've got on the site?
Yes, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions? There was a lot of concern about flooding issues, and that's covered quite substantially in our report and in the conditions. Could you just reassure us that proper drainage and so on has been properly considered?
Absolutely. So as part of the application, we've undertaken studies to look at that specific issue in light of the comments received. And part of the issue is where the existing building sits relative to the road, and the level changes between the road and the building, and the fact that it does step down and results in this sort of channel effect to the front. So the opportunity through the development is to move development away from that existing line of surface water, introduce soft landscaping, and allow opportunities for us to manage that correctly. So we looked in that detail. We support the conditions, and the detail will be addressed through the discharge of condition stage.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. With there being 2 properties at the rear, it's inevitable that at some point a car will be leaving the premises whilst another car is trying to enter the premises. Was there not the opportunity to design in a passing place? Because from looking at the plans, it would seem that one car would have to reverse to get out of the way of the other car.
It was a consideration that the depth of the access to the rear parking courtyard we felt was of a length that meant that there's enough intervisibility for vehicles waiting to turn in and exit, and space within that rear courtyard to manage that situation. if I may also use the opportunity to talk about crossing points, because it did come up in the previous deputation. There are existing crossing points to the school further to the south, with continuous pavement access to the school, and a clear pedestrian route there, which we consider is safe and convenient.
Thank you very much. Councillor Laming, is that a question of clarification?
I'll just go back on that you just said. The parish council is very concerned about the bin storage and where they're going to be positioned for collection. Have you paid any attention to that at all?
Absolutely. So each property will be provided with private rear gardens where bins can be stored, and wheeled out for collection on collection day, as happens with every single property along the Winchester Road there. It's proposed for curbside collection, so residents will be required to take their bins forward and wheel them back in as everyone else does on the street.
Yeah, I'm just referring to the way that it could actually cause a problem on the footpath itself when you're talking about probably 8 bins being put out at one time.
I don't see that it's any different to any of the other properties on Winchester Road in that regard.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's very clear. Any other questions or clarification? Councillor Lee?
Yes, I have a question about the ecology of slow worms, which is an issue, as you know. Can you just map out exactly how that's going to be approached, please?
Absolutely. So through the application, the council's ecologist made it clear that given the condition of the site, it had been allowed to become overgrown over recent years, and that created opportunities for protected species. So through the application, we've done detailed reptile surveys to understand how the site is being used, and that's indicated a low level of low population, of slow worms. So in simple terms, the strategy is for a soft clearance to the site that will disperse slow worms during the build, and then they'll be allowed to recolonize the site in private rear gardens as they similar situation to existing residential properties in the area. But we've also retained an area of habitat that will include a refugia for sort of reptile hibernacular, as it's called. So during the winter months, and there's a space for reptiles to shelter underground effectively, and that'll be managed and maintained by a management company.
Thank you very much indeed. Oh. One more bite of the cherry, Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I note that there is mitigation measures in the form of bat bricks, bird bricks and hedgehog holes proposed and they're considered acceptable. Can you explain what the mitigation measures are for the badgers, please?
So badgers, we weren't clear that there were any badgers using the site. So the mitigation that's been proposed is as you've outlined, and the council's ecologist is satisfied that it's acceptable and proportionate to the development.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's great. If you could switch off the microphone and return to your seat. Thank you very much indeed. Right. So now we turn to our officer again. Do you have any additional comments, Cameron, before we ask you questions on the report?
I've got nothing additional.
Nothing
Thank
to
you.
add. Thank you. Okay, members, so we'll take the whole report. Any questions to our officer? Councillor Pett?
Thank you, Chair. Two, if I may. First one, the half a metre gap between the front two houses and the adjoining property or the adjacent property. The urban designers commented on this and said it's insufficient. I would suggest that if anybody wanted to maintain the side of a house, 0.5 of a metre is impractical to be able to do that. You can't put a ladder up in 0.5 of a metre, not to go up to the eaves. It would just be impossible. So I find it strange that in fact you put it's barely enough for maintenance, but it's not a reason for refusal. So are we allowing this to go through potentially on the basis that we couldn't defend it at appeal, that ridiculously small gap?
Is that a building regulations thing, Cameron?
Chair, as Councillor Pett pointed out, it's not really a planning harm issue when you're looking at the wider character of the area. When we're looking at maintenance, it would be a separate and private matter. It's a bit like a buyer beware situation. The building regs would be looking at fire access and escape. That's not for this planning committee. So it's one of design really, and how you think that gap fits into the street scene, which further to the designer's comments, I think there was quite a lot of work and discussion about how we get additional houses in what are these tight spaces. That's how we're getting these sort of windfall sites that come towards us.
No, accept that. And 40 dwellings per hectare is, you know, back at PPG 3 days, isn't it? So yeah, fair enough.
Not a planning matter.
If
Councillor
that's the case, then we move on to the next one. On sustainable transport, it strikes me that we are losing an opportunity here. You say in the report that there is a minimal bus service. Outside the city, this is one of the very few places where there is an hourly bus service 6 days a week and buses on Sunday. And people can walk to both primary school and the secondary school and all the other facilities within the village. It seems strange to me and contrary to our council policies that we are putting a condition on retaining 8 car parking spaces in what could be a genuinely sustainable transport situation. Comments, please.
Actually, Cameron, I think I'll just say they have planning. We have policies that say that these sizes of houses have to have these parking spaces. People don't have to fill them with cars. They can just keep them as open spaces.
We can. I would suggest, Chair, it depends whether we wish to encourage a downturn in car use or not.
Chair, if I can just add, it's really a balance, because we've heard today from from the parish the concern about not having enough spaces for cars and parking on the street. But at the same time, we also want to improve active travel routes. That's certainly the direction of travel in the emerging plan and the county council's new plan as well. It's a balance in places like this.
Indeed, it will allow people to have visitor spaces or delivery van spaces for turning round. Councillor Lee.
I wonder if Cameron could say something about blue light services and so on. What is the expectation? Plots 3 and 4, the back, getting an ambulance in there, and or emergency services of various shapes and forms. It does look quite tight, and turning space obviously is limited. Thank you.
With regards to the access itself, they said this was through consultation with Hampshire County Council Highways themselves, and they didn't raise an objection to the access from what I was aware when I picked up this application to deal with. So they say they were happy with the access to the property for the entrance to the dwellings themselves. So sort of based it around sort of using their comments for that as being a no objection, and sort of then consider not to have significant harm regarding that.
My second question, if I may, can you also clarify, please, what the treatment is for the vegetation biodiversity on the site? It all looks very hard engineered with fences and so on. This is a well-established community, and there are properties there who like the soft nature approach that exists at the moment. So what hedges are going to be retained? Is it going to be scraped bare? What's going to be planted? What's the final look and feel, please?
With regards to the development itself, so the landscaping, I say we do have condition 8, which would then sort of go into detail, which will confirm and say through consultation with landscape engineer or ecologist for sort of the best part of soft landscaping to take place inside. I say that is dealt with through condition 8 in this application.
But is there hedges on site that are going to be removed?
Off the top of my head, unfortunately, I can't answer that question off the top of my head.
Okay. I'll have a quick look at the portal. Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to touch on the parish council's concerns with regards to overlooking in their representation. Having a look at the design, I just wanted to clarify the windows that would be facing to the sides of the property, the ground floor window, sorry, and then the roof window as well. Is that correct? I'm on plot 3 and 4 specifically, sorry.
Also, just across the entire site, are you referring to? Or
I
just
think
three?
overlooking Ashley Gardens, is it?
Yes,
yeah.
The close
So
to
with
that.
regards to the properties to the west of the site itself, which is Ashley Gardens, there was viewed to be a 20 to 23 metre gap, which we consider to be sort of within that acceptable level for sort of back-to-back development. And so, yeah, whilst there is the windows at the first floor level, given sort of the distance, and they say there is also the slight level change with plots 3 and 4 themselves being set slightly lower than that to Ashley Gardens themselves. So we believe that there wouldn't be any sort of adverse overlooking impacts or greater.
I noticed that some of the complaints, concerns about this development also touch on the small size of the amenity areas for particularly the family sized houses at the back. Can you tell me how far it is from this development site to the recreation area?
Unfortunately, I don't have an exact measurement for the distance from the site itself to the recreation area, I'm
A
afraid.
ballpark thing. All right, well, I can answer that then, because I went to visit the site. It's literally, I don't know, a couple of 100 yards up the road. It's not very far at all. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, anybody else? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. 2 questions. I believe on Ashley Gardens, one of the properties has had an extension. You mentioned a stipulated distance to the new plots, plot 3 or 4. It would seem to me that in effect, what that means is that one of those buildings is going to be too close to an existing home in Ashley Gardens. I wonder if you can clarify for me whether we've got this right. Thank you.
Chair, the planning officer would have visited the neighbour's site to get in the gardens and check back and look. Is that extension shown on that plan? Because I'm not sure where.
I think that's the one. When I stood on the property, it looked much closer, obviously, than what was just being talked about, and that's of concern to me.
So is it 2-story extension that you're concerned about?
I can't remember now.
Or single story? Okay. I think with a bit of uncertainty about the specifics, then I couldn't answer the question in any more detail. What type of extension, where it is, but the planning officer will have visited the surrounding area to look at for the actual specifics of what's on the site in order to assess the impact of it.
But does it matter whether it's a single story or a double story in terms of the distance that the new plot should be positioned at?
It will matter because of how you're looking over a property, whether you're looking down or up or across, and where those windows specifically are. Whether it's single story, and also the use of that room. Is it a primary living area where your privacy would be more affected detrimentally by somebody looking in from a primary living room? So bedrooms don't really have too much harmful impact because people are not in them most of the time. So that's generalising. Of course, we will look at the specifics of those properties as well.
So you're suggesting it's not a material consideration?
It's a material consideration. It's just that we haven't weighed it to the point where we consider there's harm, but it's certainly of a significant weight as a material consideration overlooking.
But I think that it's mentioned in one of the objections, so I think it is relevant. I think we should clarify this, please. My second question, if I may, is related to Cameron Taylor's comments about Southern Water. Now, I took a quick look at Southern Water's investment plans, and as far as I can see, there is no urgency or priority for this area, and this area has a problem with surface water, groundwater infiltration. I've seen water coming up at Brooklands Close in manholes on the Winchester Road. We know Morgan's Yard is predicated against them having to improve surface and groundwater and foul water drainage. When we did Eden Bridge a little while ago on this planning committee, it was mentioned again. Forest Close has the same problem. So I'm not convinced that we can have a guarantee in the way that you're suggesting when it's not cast iron. So this is really quite worrying. Properties are blighted. The recreation ground floods. It's costing the parish council a lot of money. And if we're taking away that vegetation, it's a soak for soaking up this problem. And we're just going to be exacerbating it So I wonder what the treatment would be. Condition 6 doesn't do it for me, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Well, I was going to refer to it was noted to be within 5 years. Southern Water are open to the updates to that, and say in regards to condition 6, that's from our view what would the details would be for the foul and surface water drainage, which before the development takes place, for us to then consult with our relevant drainage engineer, would then be able to sort of confirm that from their professional standpoint.
Can I just add, the developer is building 4 houses. He doesn't want them to flood any more than anybody else. None of us can give guarantees in the current climate situation. There is going to be green areas there. They are going to push the building back from the existing building line and put in extra areas where it can. It's really up to the builder themselves. We've got the stuff, we've got the conditions. We can't do any more, I'm afraid, Councillor Lee. We cannot stop it raining. So in terms of planning, I don't think that your concerns, I understand your concerns, but I don't think in planning terms, given the conditions and the reassurances that we have been given and the information that we've been given by Southern Water, I don't think in planning terms it's a sufficient reason for refusal.
And can I just add something to that? The local flood authority is also aware that there are issues in the area, and I haven't seen anything definitive in terms of assurance with respect to surface water flooding. Thank you.
Chair, just to confirm, major developments we take to the local lead flood authority, not one of this size. And as Councillor Rutter has pointed out, this issue with flooding locally has risen itself many times, but it's not within our gift to fix the problems where Southern Water and Portsmouth Water are putting a lot of money in to do that. We have to consider this application within the statutory framework, and you can see the consultation responses we've had from our own engineer, the levels that will be changed on site, the flood risk assessment that's been undertaken. There is no merit to pursuing that line of concern in terms of this application.
So we add more houses to an under capacity system, and we expect the residents to wear the pain. That's really
We're talking about 3 extra small houses here.
And Morgan's Yard and the previous ones we considered this committee. Thank you.
We're talking about this application today, Councillor Lee. In planning terms, we can only talk about this application. Any more questions for our case officer? No questions? Right, we move to debate. Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. I've listened quite carefully to the Parish Council's concerns and many of the questions that have been raised here. With many reasons stated not to support the application, but unfortunately we must judge this application on our planning policy set out in our local plan. And we must judge this application on its own merits. I know there have been concerns raised about the other developments nearby opposite in regards to Morgan's the Morgan's Yards development, but also about the crossing aspects as well. The consultees of this planning application have not raised significant objections, and the amended plans do take into consideration some concerns that have been raised. But unfortunately, although there is a strong support not to support the application, they don't fall into our material planning reasons to why we should object to this application. So I will be supporting the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. If I may also contribute, I did visit the site a couple of days ago, drove round and also walked round the area. I do think that what is proposed actually is within the character of the area. There are a lot of small developments, smaller houses, smaller gardens, and it is the character of the area. I think taking the building line back from the road frontage will improve significantly the look of the area and putting some extra greenery in there. I think all the concerns about flooding and wildlife and things are properly addressed in our conditions and have been looked at very carefully by our officers. I understand the concerns of residents, but unfortunately you cannot use planning law and you cannot use this particular small development as a way of beating over the head Southern Water, despite the fact they probably need beating over the head, to improve the drainage and everything else in the whole area. It is a concern for the whole area. This certainly will not make it any worse. But we cannot use this to make things better for the whole community, except that we will be providing 4 new family homes, which will be within the affordable bracket in local terms. I agree with what Councillor Pett said about sustainability, and I do hope that the people who buy these will be using the bus and cycling and walking. It's a very sustainable community, and I hope that that will be what will happen. We have current policies that require us to provide enough parking spaces, but I hope that people will be using the bus and using cycling and other alternative methods of getting about. In terms of the danger from the road, it again is not something that we can address in this planning application. We are not the Highways Authority. However, we can point out to Hampshire County Council the concerns of the community and the concerns that we are putting in more family homes on the other side of the road from the school. And as has been agreed at the last large planning application just up the road in Solomon's Lane, there is a need for a proper crossing here. And I do hope that County Council and county councillors and the parish will continue to press the County Council, who is the Highways Authority, to put in a safe crossing point on this road and to improve the provision for encouraging drivers to actually stick to the 30-mile-an-hour limit and not to speed along here, which having driven along it myself, I'm very aware of. So I think in terms of overlooking, as I say, it's the whole area is full of small houses quite closely put together. I don't think that this will result in overlooking. I think that there will be more houses. At the moment, the houses in the nearby close certainly overlook trees and such like, but that's just because this development hasn't happened yet. There will be buildings there, but I'm sure that it's not such an overlooking issue as to present harm to the extent that we would have to turn down this application. So having taken all of those issues into consideration, I do think that we should be supporting the officer recommendation in this case. So if there's Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, like yourself, of course, I've walked around the area, read the village design statement, and of course, local residents are best placed to understand the character of place. And as we've heard from the parish council, the belief is that this development doesn't do that. It goes too far in terms of changing the street scene and so on. I think the issue about flooding and so on, we've mentioned it's conditioned and so on, but I'm thinking about CP7. I don't know if there's anything in there that we can use to push back on the development, because I believe it says we should avoid flood risk to people and property. I don't think what I'm hearing does that. And I don't think that this is the effective use of land under CP14. The development potential of the site should be maximized, of course, and balanced against the need to promote good quality design. I think the 2 stories at the back, having listened to the residents, the concerns about looking into each other's windows, the concerns about the overbearing density in terms of the existing neighbours' properties, I think is a step too far. So, but of course, a development would be better, but I think on balance, this is a step too far for me. Thank you.
Councillor Pett.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, like others, I've visited the site. In fact, I used to live around the corner from it many years ago. I think it's a shame that there are lost opportunities here. Certainly, design is a material, planning consideration, of course. That ridiculously small gap. Okay, fine. We are dealing with as you say, the case in front of us. On that basis, I think we have little alternative but to approve it. I think the density, certainly Waltham Chase over the last 10, 15 years has seen many developments of this sort of density. It's inevitable that there will be more to come. I find it sad that we are not in a position to exercise greater leverage over making better use of sustainable transport in this location, but we are where we are, as you say. So like you, I will be supporting the application.
Thank you. So now we move to the vote. Can I see all those in favour of the officer recommendation to approve this application?
That's 6, Chair. Oh,
Can we do that again, please? All those in favour?
7, Chair.
7. And those against?
1, Chair.
And any abstentions? No,
That's all.
oh, it's all members. Okay. So that application is approved. Thank you. There'll be a short pause whilst we change the presenting officer. Thank you. Right, we now move to the next item on the agenda, item number 7, which is at Highview, Swanmore Road, Swanmore. And our presenting officer is Ethan Townsend. Welcome, Ethan. I think this is your first planning committee, isn't it? Do you want to change your label just so we know who you are? That's it. Lovely. So if you'd like to give us your presentation, please. Thank you.
Right. Good morning, members. Thank you for having me here. This morning I'll be walking you through the application at Highview, which is for a single and 2-storey side extension and partial front extension. There will be a replacement outbuilding garage with a craft and games space in the attic, and the vehicle access will be relocated slightly, and the drop curb will be slightly extended with new rip piers and pillars and a gate. First, to set the context for the site, this is the location plan. So obviously the site is etched in red. To the north of the site, to the east and west, you've got neighbouring properties. And then to the south, there is some fields. This here shows the Google aerial of the site, which provides a bit better visual context for the site and its surrounding properties. Obviously, the site is on the north of Swanmore Road and it's coming into the village, the settlement boundary for the village. There's a public right-of-way which leads from the east of the site up to, I think it's called Jervis Court Farm. And you can still see that there's obviously agricultural fields to the south. I thought it would be quite useful to provide another aerial of the site, but a bit closer to really appreciate the relationship between neighbouring properties and to see the surrounding context for the site. So obviously all the properties in the area are detached. The property to the west is a bit larger than the application site, and obviously to the south, to the north, you've got larger homes to the rear. Yeah. I think the easiest way to walk you through the site and what's being proposed itself is to show the proposed ground floor plan first, instead of showing you the site plan. This just makes it a bit easier to appreciate what's actually going on and the context and the footprint of the development. So hopefully you can all see my mouse. Do let me know if you can't. Okay. This here, so the side extension is proposed to be to the west. So it's obviously coming out here towards the side boundary here. The 2-storey part of the extension will be this part here, which I'm trying to highlight. And then there will be a 1-storey rear extension from this to the rear of the 2-storey side extension. There is a modest porch proposed to the front of the house, but as you can see, the porch and the side extension do not protrude forward of the existing front gable for the property. There is also a replacement garage outbuilding, which is an L-shaped building here to the northeast of the site, which is adjacent to the other side boundary for the property. It's going to be used as a garage, garden store with a toilet at ground floor. Obviously, you can see there are stairs, so there will be a first floor, which I'll go into now. Yeah, so here's the first floor for the proposed development. We haven't received an amended plan, so you can see the red here. That's a window that has been removed, so there is no longer a rear window on the first floor serving the garage outbuilding. The first floor of the outbuilding will be used for storage and as a games room. There will still be a window on the front elevation. And then now moving towards the two-storey side extension. So if you can see here, this is the two-storey side extension to the dwelling house to the west, and then it goes down to the single-storey to the rear of the side extension. The single-storey will have a roof lantern, and as you can see on the plans here, there is a proposed high-level obscure glazed window to the side for the proposed new bedroom. Now we're going to go sort of backwards and look at the existing dwelling house. As you can see, that it is quite a traditional style property, the detached two-storey dwelling. It's got a protruding, if you look at the front elevation here, it's got a protruding front gable, small porch area. There's a single-storey garage to the side. Yeah, and then at the rear, you've got a similar rear protruding gable here, and you can see the garage. Now, we'll go through the proposed elevations, but we'll take it in turn so it's a bit easier to digest. The proposed front elevation we'll start with. So here is the two-storey side extension. So as you can see, it's trying to emulate what's already on site with a front protruding gable, with similar features in the actual gable. It will have 4 windows on the front. You can appreciate here is the flat roof porch, which is fairly modest in size, but also on the front elevation, you can see the proposed replacement garage. So the ridge height and eaves height is set below that of the existing dwelling. There will be garage doors at the front and a window, but its design is similar or reminiscent of the existing property. Now we'll go over to the side extension. Here you can see the high level obscure window, which I mentioned earlier, which is to serve the new bedroom. These windows are already, these windows here are already existing. And you can see that this is where the two-storey side extension goes to the single-storey extension with a roof lantern here. And you can just about start to see the replacement garage over here. I'll move now to the other side extension. So here, this one's really quite useful to see the height of the proposed replacement garage. We'll obviously have a pitched roof. The dotted line here, if you can see, is the existing boundary fence line. So obviously it slopes slightly upwards because there is variation in ground level, but the eaves obviously here slightly above it, and obviously we'll have a pitched roof. And then now to the rear, you can appreciate here is the replacement outbuilding to the side of the dwelling house to the rear side. There are patio doors to the rear, but as you can see, the replacement, the window at the first floor level has been removed. Now moving on to the proposed site plan. So this provides, well, a larger context for all the works that are going on at the site. Similarly, as I've already walked you through, the side extension is, two-storey side extension is here, but you can now appreciate the existing boundary treatments at the site. So you can see it's coming out towards the western boundary, towards the neighbouring property here. There is a single-storey side extension, as already mentioned here, which is a bit closer to the boundary because it's obviously not a straight linear line. The rear garden's remaining the same. There's obviously, I will note, there's some new tree planting that has been provided already, which I noted on my site visit, which is also shown on the site plan. To the northeastern side here, where the replacement outbuilding see, you can actually see the dotted line here shows the existing outbuilding. So it's sited over a similar footprint to the existing, but obviously slightly larger, and it will protrude slightly further forward. There's no proposed changes to the eastern side of the house. Obviously, the front porch is here. You can see to the front of the house, they've got 3 parking spaces, which is in accordance with our standards. And you can see the location of the temporary storage container. I will just remind members, obviously, there is a condition that is removed post-development. Then also, finally, to the access alterations. I mean, the access alterations are quite similar to what's already there, but they will be extending the drops. Where's the mouse gone? There you go. They will be extending the drop curb. There is proposed brick and brick piers and a gate proposed. Obviously, the gate will be set back about 6 metres from the highway, and the existing hedge is to be retained on site, and that's also been conditioned to be retained. Now, just looking at the proposed outbuilding, this is a view from what would be the view from inside the rear garden looking towards the east. So obviously it has a cat slide roof. There's a window at ground floor level, 2 doors, 3 roof lights. And you can also see that the plans show this is the height and the form of the neighbouring property's garage at the 3 corners. Now, finally, moving on to the proposed access arrangements, you can see that these are what the brick piers will look like, and the brick wall with a sliding gate, which is similar height to the brick piers, and the pedestrian gate on the other side. But obviously, as mentioned, the hedges to be retained in this proposal. Now we're going to move on to some site photos I took during my site visits. So the first one on the top, that's looking down Swanmore Road. The application site is actually to the rear here. So I just thought it'd be useful to show what the surrounding properties look like. Obviously, these are all detached properties. The one on the bottom left is to the south west of the application site, taken from the road. This property here is the neighbouring property, so it has a similar sort of traditional style with 2 front gables. The application site is the one here, and this is obviously taken further along the road, looking straight up towards the property. So these are some further photos of the property. This obviously shows the existing access arrangements, the existing hedge, and the style and form of the fairly traditional property. Yeah, and the photo on the top right also just shows a bit clearer what the existing property looks like. You know, it's a white painted brickwork property with a small, modest porch. This shows the the storage container that's in place. As I've already mentioned, we will be conditioning its removal as part of this application. Now, these photos, we're moving on to the side of the dwelling house. This is the eastern side. So if you see here, well, the top 2 photos show where the existing outbuilding is located. Obviously, you'll note that it is single story. As you can sort of see, especially in the top left photo, it's sited fairly near to the outbuilding at Merryweather 3 Corners. And the bottom photo does show that outbuilding in greater detail. Now, these photos are the other side of the site, so I'm taking you to the western elevation. Here in this gap is obviously where the 2-storey side extension will be sited. You will appreciate and understand that there, if you have a look, you can see that there is a ground floor window serving this property on the side, and a first floor window which serves a bathroom. Yeah, the bottom photo does show quite clearly the distance and the gap between the 2 properties at present. Finally, we're moving on to the rear of the site. So all these photos are taken within the rear garden. Firstly, starting with the top left photo, that's obviously a view of what the rear elevation of the dwelling house looks like, and you can appreciate that that is the neighbouring property to the west. Then we have to the top right, we've got a photo of the existing single-storey outbuilding and its relationship to the existing property. So obviously the proposed one will be sited in a fairly similar position to the existing. The bottom photos were taken just to appreciate where the neighbouring property to the east is situated in relation to the host dwelling and to the outbuilding. So obviously it is sited further back within the plot. And this is a similar photo to what I've shown you before, but I thought it was just a bit more clear and provide potentially better clarity of the existing neighbouring property, Merryweather, and the existing single-storey garage. These are photos just of the rear, just to show the existing planting, well, the new existing planting that's been placed at the site. Obviously, it's not had time yet to establish, but it will in due course. Now, these are photos I've taken from neighbouring properties. This whole slide is devoted to photos taken from Merryweather specifically. So, I mean, they may not be the clearest, but I'll try and walk you through them exactly where I'm standing. This one is taken from the side of Merryweather in their side garden. If you can all see my mouse, this is where the existing single-storey outbuilding is, and obviously this is the existing dwelling. So there will be a replacement outbuilding proposed to be sited in a similar location to this, of a slightly greater height. Then this just shows the ground floor side windows of Merryweather. And finally, these photos were taken from the other neighbouring property to the other side at the crest. And these really just show the ground floor window and its positioning and in relationship to the existing fence. And then the photo on the right provides a greater clarity of the depth and distance between the two properties as existing. Well, thank you for listening to my presentation. Yeah, and in conclusion, obviously the proposal as set out within the report complies with local plan policies, and for that reason I'm recommending it for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now turn to public speaking. Now, I understand the applicant is here and may wish to speak. Is that the case? You're here for the applicant. Okay, well, perhaps we can have you if we think we need to ask some questions of clarification. But our first public speaker, we have Lawrence Morgan and Laura Spanner. Welcome. And you are objecting to the application and you have a presentation as well, I believe. Yes, good. That's all. Is that in? Lovely. You will have 3 minutes between you, so I hope you've decided who's speaking. Yeah, lovely. So when you're ready, if you could switch on the microphone and the timer will start when you start speaking. Thank you.
Thank you. 100% of Highview's neighbouring properties disagree the development proposal is acceptable and compliant with the development plan policies for the following reasons. We recognise Highview requires renovation, but this will be its third extension. The previous two extensions have already increased the original footprint by up to 40%. The proposal would add nearly 100 metres squared and up to 130% increase to the original footprint. Given this planning history, our strong objections relate to the scale of the extension in context of the plot size, impact on neighbouring properties and the local scene. Given the size of the development, the quality and accuracy of the submitted drawings are concerning. They are hand-drawn with no architect's mark and or varying scales, making it difficult for us to understand the impact of the development. The proposal would overdevelop the plot, filling its width, with the garage 0.5 metres from the boundary with 3 corners and the side extension 1.3 metres from the boundary with the crest. The property is in a rural, not semi-rural location, fronting the main road and visible to the public realm. The side extension is not subservient to the existing building, counter to general planning principles. The existing front gable is approximately 3.5 metres wide. The proposed extension is 4.5 metres wide. The ridge height is not lower. The scale of the side extension would create a dramatic impact on the overall rural street scene and reduce the sense of openness and proportional green space between Highview and the crest. The proposal would also result in unacceptable loss of visual amenity to the crest. The family room in the crest is the principal living room with a single side window. Slide 2 shows the current outlook from that window towards Highview's existing flank elevation. I disagree. The proposal would result in a similar outlook from this room. This new side elevation would be further forwards, 4.5 metres closer, and would dominate this outlook. The side extension will unpleasantly and unacceptably encroach this principal living space, reducing the level of light and causing loss of visual amenity. The increased scale and bulk of the garage will cause unacceptable loss of visual amenity, overshadow and loss of light to the 3 corners, bathroom, study room and utility room. The urban style gates are completely out of keeping with the surrounding property's boundary treatments and are visible from the street scene. Driveways are either open or with wooden 5-bar gates. The lack of detail regarding materials and finish is also a concern. The planning report states the gable end will be decorated similar to the existing property, and the application states the materials will be bricks and tiles to match existing. The property has recently been haphazardly and partially whitewashed, including the brickwork, plastic guttering and downpipes. We don't know, has this been done to give the impression of rendering? We're not sure why it's happened. There's no mention of roofing in the planning report. Will the existing dilapidated roof be replaced to ensure a harmonious and continuous theme? So finally, cumulative effect of the above will cause more harm than benefit for the area, and the negative impact on day-to-day quality of life and well-being for neighbouring occupants outweighs the housing need. Thank you. I've never spoken so quickly in my life.
Well, you managed to just get within my allowance of extra margin of time. Well done. Okay, members, do we have any questions of clarification for Lawrence and Laura, please? Councillor Ashwell.
Thanks for your presentation. I did have a drive past the area yesterday. I didn't know it quite well. Can you just confirm, are there any other areas that have gated properties at the front on the street?
So as far as I've walked around the village, so our section of Swanmore Road has no gates apart from wooden 5-bar gates set up further. Almost the entire village has got open driveways. You will find the odd example of a gate, but having walked all the way down Swanmore Road to Hampton Park Lane, I haven't seen a single example of this type of solid gate. Do you want to add anything?
Councillor Lee.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to get some feel for and sense of how long you've been living at the property, both yourself and Lawrence, please.
I've been living at my property, The Crest, since 2008.
I've been at Three Corners 10 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions of clarification, members? No? Okay, thank you very much indeed. You may return to your seats. Thank you. Would the applicant's representative like to come up? Do we have any questions of clarification for the applicant whilst they're around? Can I ask about the gate? Good morning. Thank you for coming. If you'd like to, the microphone, that's lovely. So could I just ask about the gate? Because that seems to be a particular concern about not being part.
It's purely a personal request really from the client. In today's sort of environment, there's always problems with people being burgled and bits and pieces, and Waltham Chase, Swanmore is, as the lady said, it's open, but then the Crest next door has got just a plain gravel open driveway, so access to houses is quite easy for people. It's just a personal choice, and they want to be secure. So it's purely that, nothing else really. We talked
Okay.
about 5-bar gates.
Thank you.
So,
Councillor Lee?
Thank you. It looks like the gates is it
a sliding gate.
sliding gate? Yes, but is it for two car width or one car width? I can't get a sense of scale and
It's
size.
4.5, so it's
4.5, so quite a lot of hedge to be removed.
no, it's right. If you look on the, well, you can't quite see it on the drawing, but the photograph, but the hedge returns into the driveway, and you've got a wooden fence on the right. So it's trying to create a sense of detachment from, because the driveway, or it goes up to the rear or to the right.
Yeah.
It's actually quite dangerous sometimes trying to come out and someone coming down that driveway. So we're trying to just slightly move it over, and there's a telegraph pole in the way, so we can't move it that much.
Yeah.
So it's probably about a metre.
Okay.
But most of it is the hedge going into the garden.
And how long does it take for the gate to open? Or if someone's waiting to enter the property?
Well, we've accommodated that because the highways is 4.5 space before off the highways. We've actually got 6 metres, so someone can easily turn in and wait for the gate to open without
The
being.
gate is 6 metres away from the
From the road.
the existing entrance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And it opens behind the hedge, so the hedge will be in front
Yeah,
of
it's
it.
behind the hedge. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very
Is that
much
right?
indeed. Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's covered the
that's
questions I
very
had
fine.
anyway. Thank you. Okay, so we return to our officer, Ethan. Did you have anything to add to your report following the public contributions?
Not particularly. I will just say, obviously, just speaking about the highways issue, obviously they have been consulted and they have no objections because there is sufficient space for a car to pull in without obstructing the highway network.
Okay, members, so we go to questions on the report. Councillor Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It was the permitted development rights were talked about, and I believe this is the third extension. So could you just unpack that for me? presumably this is permitted within permitted development rights. We're not overextending the size of the property by some quirk of something. Just want clarification, please.
I'm a bit confused by the question in the sense that it's not, this application is a planning application, it's not for permitted development. Are you asking what they could do under permitted development?
Well, my understanding is it had several extensions, so
Yeah.
this is the third.
Yeah, but obviously the relevancy of previous extensions isn't exactly what's most important. What is important is the character and appearance of the proposed extensions under this application. Because obviously neighbouring properties have previously, both the neighbouring properties have been extended themselves. So it's what's really relevant is what members think about the proposed design, the proposed scale of the proposal. If that does that help at all? Or?
Yeah, it does a bit. Thank you.
Sorry.
As always, we are looking at the application in front of us, Councillor Lee, and nothing else. Right. Any further questions for our officer? Councillor Ashwell.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask about the garage extension or change. I'm just concerned, it shows, unless I'm not reading this correctly, the stairs can be placed inside there now.
Yes, so there will be a first floor to the garage. So that is correct. There will be stairs inside. So obviously the roof space for the garage will be used. 1 second while I get the floor plans up. But yeah, it will be used as a storage and games room on at first floor level, and the ground floor will be used as a garage and store. And there's a small toilet. This is obviously the first floor plan, but on the ground floor at this point, there'll be a small toilet as well. So all these uses are what we'd consider to be incidental uses to a dwelling house. So they are acceptable, and it's been conditioned to remain incidental. So it's not going to be used obviously as habitable accommodation.
So
Councillor Pett, sorry, did
Okay.
you want to carry on?
Yeah, I'll just
Councillor Ashwell.
another question.
Yes, all right.
Just-
Have another question
Okay.
and then we'll carry
I'm
on.
just a bit, well, maybe it's concern actually that whether that changes to the garage, could that later be converted into another dwelling for usage?
It's conditioned that it should be an ancillary an ancillary building to the main dwelling, so it can't. It would have to come back with further planning application for that to happen. It's just a toilet anyway. There's not a shower or a kitchen or anything. Councillor Pett, I think you are waiting next.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back to this gate again, having visited the property actually early this morning, I can see, yes, it's perfectly safe as an ingress and egress in as far as you can pull off the road to wait for the thing to go. So in my book, this is purely a design thing again. Sorry, that makes me a bit of a stuck record on design, doesn't it? But given the speaker earlier on was just saying that there are no other properties in that part of Swanmore Road that have any such gate. That was obvious to me this morning. Yes, it does make this over suburban in terms of design. In my book, I would disagree with the officer that the next door house is more suburban. It's not. It's more contemporary in design. It's not more suburban. So I wonder, given that the village design statement also suggests that this sort of gate is inappropriate, was there any attempt to get this removed during the application process, or was it just accepted?
In this case, it really was just to terminate the application on what was originally there. Obviously, there was discussions to do with other issues, but that issue I didn't specifically address because my view was, yeah, I do understand people's thoughts and opinions with regards to this matter, but in this instance, I just thought, it's a fairly modest part of the corner of the site. When you're driving past when you would be driving past the proposed gates, you wouldn't see it. It wouldn't be unduly visible. And I think with the hedge condition to be retained, that is a very important characteristic of the area. Obviously, if I go back, I could go back to photos. 1 second. Sorry, wrong way. But obviously, the hedges are a very important contributing factor to the character and appearance of the area. In this instance, the hedge would be retained, and we've ensured that it would be retained. So for me, on balance, obviously, I appreciate comments, but I thought on balance, this particular element would be acceptable.
May I come back quickly? I find that astonishing that more consideration wasn't given to it, given that there is a clash with the village design statement, which is supplementary planning guidance. And because the entrance is on a slight angle in the road there, yes, it will be very visible to traffic on that road.
I have to point out, councillor, but I don't agree with you. I think because it's 6 metres off the road and it's hidden behind the hedge, unless you're absolutely opposite, you won't be able to see it. Well, I think it's going to be well back from the hedge. Okay, so I've got councillor Williams next.
Thank you very much, and it probably should have been asked of the applicant initially, but it's in regards to the proximity to the South Downs National Park, as well as the objectors mentioning about specifically about the roof lighting, and whether there is any. There's obviously no condition, but whether in the design there is any sort of mitigation to stop light overspill, because this is right on the border of the South Downs National Park.
Yeah. So obviously it is about 0.4. I can't think, 0.4 is completely incorrect, sorry, about 41 metres to the rear. There will be a roof lantern and there will be 3 roof lights. Obviously, roof lights do normally come with shutters on their windows. That's not something we can condition as planning officers because it's internal, but it's fairly standard that will be the normal approach. But with regards to the roof lantern, yes, there would be some increase in light spill, but obviously with the conditions with external lighting that would further limit it. And the existing property is well, it does have its own existing sources of light. It could, under PD, implement loads of roof lights on the existing property, but we just have to base it on what is being proposed. And I think the addition of these lights, in particular with the condition on external lighting, is sufficient in this instance. Thank you.
Councillor Small.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, being a bit pernickety. When you keep saying we're retaining the hedge, some of the hedge is going.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. 1 second while I get the plan up. So if any is to go, it's purely just trimming it so that you can get the walls in here, if you get me. Because it's not already on this side. So the existing front of the hedge, majority of it is to be absolutely retained. Does that help answer the question? Or
It was just I was confused about the location of where the wall and the gates were going to be. I'm glad that's been clarified.
I'm just going to try something.
But it is being widened, isn't it, the entrance?
If I do that, I can try and zoom in more and see if it's clearer. So the axis is being widened, but obviously the hedge here still starts where it normally starts. If there is going to be any trimming, it would be purely just to insert these walls, and then the condition obviously states that the hedge will be retained. Obviously the plans already show that it is to be retained, so it's not the applicant's intention to remove the hedge.
Councillor Lee.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to the point that was raised by Councillor Pett about the gates. The local parish council and the residents understand the character of the locality, and from what I can see in terms of that location of that gate, it's going to be obtrusive, and I don't think it's in character with the local village design statement. So is there something that we can do, please, to consider an alternative, or for that gate not to be put in?
I'm afraid it's part of the application in front of us, Councillor Lee, so that's what we're asked to approve. The main thing, of course, is the house. So I have a question, actually. Can I just, the materials have been raised as a concern. We have a condition, do we, to agree the materials with the...
Yeah, that's correct. There is a condition requiring that materials will be submitted to us in advance, and but prior to development above, I think it's slab level or damp course level, and we obviously will review that and look at it. I will note, just going back to what the neighbours said, obviously in this application we can only focus on the materials used in the proposed extension. We can't obviously require them to render the existing house, for example, or any other such alterations. We can only focus on the materials for the proposed extension, which has been conditions which we will receive samples of, and then if they're appropriate, we will, that they would be permitted. Thank you.
And is it possible to condition or request some environmental ecology improvements like swift boxes or something like that in the extension?
We do have an informative attached. I mean, it depends on whether or not we view it reasonable to condition that in this instance. For example, it has to meet obviously the 6 tests of what planning conditions should be.
Generally speaking, Chair, we've been putting those enhancement conditions on new housing and new buildings in their entirety. When it comes to homeowners extending their properties, we've been suggesting that they do that. We can still take that approach because there is a reasonably sized extension. I don't think there's any real harm if we did put a condition on asking for what those ecological enhancements might be. Might set a precedent moving forward, perhaps.
I think since it's such a large extension and it's so close to the national park and it is just over the road from open fields and so on, I think that let's set that precedent, shall we, today? Members, are we in agreement that should we approve this, there will be an extra condition added requiring some ecology and biodiversity improvements like swift boxes and so on?
Chair, it will just simply say that prior to development commencing, or we might put above slab level or something, that details of ecological enhancements such as shall be submitted to improved in writing, development to be carried out in accordance with it.
Perfect. Is that agreed, members? In principle? Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Yeah, I just want to come back to this South Downs National Park, the dark skies policy, 41 metres from the South Downs National Park, and Ethan mentioned the roof light, but roof lights can have shutters. And if we're talking about biodiversity and looking after ecology, light is a disturbance. So I really am surprised that South Downs National Park thinks it's acceptable. And I think if we can mitigate the light intrusion for our neighbours as well, we shouldn't be adding to it. So I wonder if, again, can that be a condition, please?
I think we can add a condition requiring the roof light to be shuttered.
Chair, we'll use the standard wording of the South Downs condition, which does require, like for the dark night skies to be, the right blinds to be put in on the timer, etc. We do have a condition which does insist that any other external lighting does need to be controlled by us, but we can take that stage further because there's an assessment in respect to the South Downs.
Thank you. I think that's agreed by members. Yes. Councillor Small, do you have another question? I'm coming back to you, Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you. The village design statement keeps coming up. I was just wondering if we could have some clarity how much weight should be given to that.
So we have that document open. It's June 2019. One of our not so old ones. They are in the process of updating, but it is a material consideration that does carry whatever weight you consider it should be afforded, but it's part of the development plan, so it does afford quite significant weight. We've been reviewing some of the sections that are relevant to the application. It does respect general open frontage, but the wording isn't that specific. It's sort of looks at the wider character of the area, where that may or may not be appropriate. And of course, in this case, most of the frontage is retained as it is. But yes, it should carry weight to it if there's any specific parts that you think are appropriate.
As always, it's a case of balance and the level of harm if you perceive there to be harm.
We have mentioned it in the report a few times, so if you go to the right page, you can quickly have a look at how we've considered that in the application assessment.
Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I had concerns about the lantern and the light spill due to the proximity of the National Park, but I accept that that can be conditioned with shutters. I also was very concerned about the size of the garage at 86 square metres. It's almost the size of a small dwelling. But again, that's been conditioned that retains within curtilage. I'm still concerned about the gates. I do think that this is property in a rural situation. It is in the immediate proximity of the setting of the National Park, And I think that the gates will have a significant impact on the street scene, which is a material consideration.
What was your question?
Is there anything we can do to condition the materials of the gate or the style of the gate? So, for example, a gate that closes, but it's a 5-bar gate, so that it's more in keeping.
We can condition additional details, however, it should be supplementary to the details that actually comprise part of the planning application on the plan at the moment. You want to just flick to the wall application or plan. Currently it's proposed as in matching materials, isn't it? Or is it currently proposed as? It's just brick. So we can condition the materials of it, and we can see the right specification of bricks to make it as sort of recessive as possible, given that it, and also the appearance of the gate as well. There isn't any more details than that, is there? No, so we can ask for more details of the actual gate itself, so we can look at the appearance of it, the materials of it, and its construction and how it sits in there. So it can be as recessive as we can get it, inappropriate to that existing property.
So that would basically mean that we'd be seeing something more like a 5-bar gate than a completely blank.
Well, it is a sliding gate we're approving, so it would have to be something that would be capable of that. But yes, I'm sure we could condition it so that it's of a more open appearance, if that works.
I think that would be acceptable to members. I've got three more questions. Councillor Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm looking at the games room and I'm looking at the proximity of the longer extension right on the boundary of the property to the right. I appreciate building regulations will cover noise and acoustic attenuation, but it may not be enough. So is there something we can do to condition that more heavily, given that close proximity to the property on the right?
What you mean in terms of
Well,
landscaping?
the games room obviously it could become, very rowdy. Who knows? But it's peace and tranquility. And I wonder if is there something that can be done?
In this instance, it's not something we could do because the outbuilding's been used for something that is reasonably expected to be used for within a domestic setting. So it's not anticipated that it would lead to adverse levels of noise beyond that, which is expected for a domestic property. I will say, obviously, there is an existing outbuilding at the site which they could, already have its own existing noise level. So in this instance, it's not something we could condition per se. Obviously, we have conditioned the use of it to remain incidental, but incidental use does include a games room. It could be used for a study. So the use itself could change. It doesn't mean that it's always going to be used as a games room, but they could use it for any other incidental, like a store or a store or a study or other incidental domestic uses. So, but sorry, I know that's a long answer, but in the short of it, it's not something we could condition reasonably.
Councillor Small, was it? No, Councillor Ashwell. Did you have another question? Yep.
Chair, I'm really struggling with the scale of the extension and the gate and everything. I just wonder if we could have a site visit.
Well, I've walked past it and had a good look, and it's certainly what's proposed is no bigger than the neighbouring properties from the outside. So I think it's of a par with neighbouring properties. There's all sorts of huge houses around there. Councillor Pett.
Sorry, I'm still on the gates. I think it's fanciful to suggest that you could have a retracting 5-bar gate style thing. I've also got open the Swanmore Village Design Statement. I noticed in the report the Village Design Statement wasn't referenced at all in the discussion of the sliding gate and the brick wall. I'm just interested in what the planning team think are the relevant bits of the village design statement and how they relate to what is proposed here. Because at the moment, I think this is a significant change to the street scene in that part of Swanmore. And if it's the first, others will follow. And before we know it, the village design statement, as it affects Swanmore Road, will become almost an irrelevance.
Could our planning officers give us some advice here?
We're just turning to the relevant page in respect to frontage, Chair, which Ethan has taken into account, and he'll just give you an overview of what that says.
Yeah, just to read out this one more village design statement, it says driveways within the settlement are generally left open, although there are some timber bar gates in various designs, including 5-bar gates, which reflect Swanmore's rural heritage. There are a few iron gates. Yeah, I mean, the modern developments are open plan with either dwarf, hedging, or no marked boundaries, both giving a more suburban feel.
Thank you. I don't think that covered the sort of solid design gate that we saw in the presentation earlier on.
I think the condition that we've just agreed that should be looked at again by our officers.
I'd just like to understand what is achievable in that condition, because as I say, it's not going to be a retracting 5-bar gate, is it?
I don't see why not.
Chair, there's a lot of design solutions for a lot of different situations. The condition would allow us to explore that with the applicant. What has to be the same though is the proposal is for a sliding gate, so that is what you would need to be approving. But we would then look at explore what the options were to respect the concerns about the more open nature of the frontage there.
I think also, Chair, we have to bear in mind how the application's been registered and validated, and in the description, it obviously captures new screen flank walls / pillars, as well as the sliding gate. So you're going to see not just the sliding gate, but also the screen flank walls and pillars. And the condition will allow the officers to come forward with the applicant with a design solution if there is one feasible. If not, then I assume that the condition will come back.
Councillor Williams?
Thank you very much, Chair. It was a question again in regards to this gate. So with the condition in allowing a further application towards the details of the gate, although it be sliding, if we were to obviously accept the condition that we already have in regard to be more open, and the applicant not be happy with this, could they then come forward with an amended application for a non-sliding gate that meets the initial condition of it being more open?
So once they make the submission, we'd need to find a solution really that was in accordance with the approved drawings. And at any point, an applicant can always change their mind and want to do something else or take a new application. But from a local planning authority's point of view, we would have to find that solution through those details of compliance, and then we would look to approve the correct solution.
Since the representative, the applicant, is here, and it would solve a lot of this toing and froing, would the applicant be amenable to discussing with our officers a more appropriate gateway closing? By all means. Right. So I think that condition is reasonable and will enable us to have further discussions with the applicant to find a gateway that will be more appropriate to its setting. Right, if there are no more questions, we move to debate. Yes, please. Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. We've discussed a lot about the gate, but not as tremendous much about the extension itself. But I am thinking that the extension itself is in keeping with other properties nearby. I do think, going back to the gate, that the overwhelming street scene is of hedging and open aspects going into properties with their drive. So I do welcome the additional condition in regards to the gate, and I'm quite glad that we've come to a resolution in regards to that, and that we're all sort of in agreement, really. Also very much welcome condition 5 with the additional condition of the South Downs National Park lighting to prevent light spillage and affect the night skies. I also welcome the condition 6 in regards to ensuring that the outbuilding is not a separate dwelling, as well as condition 7, as mentioned, to ensure that the hedging is maintained. Having visited the site and driving past it very frequently, the overwhelming street scene, as I say, is that hedging, the continuous hedging along there with the open gaps for access to properties. So I'll be supporting this application.
Councillor Laming.
Thank you, Chair. I find this is a very difficult application. Judging it by what we have in front of us, I find that the scale and mass of the whole project are out of keeping with the area. I'm very concerned that the village design statement should be adhered to with greater weight. And I think that the way the gates have been proposed, whether we look at it again or not, is unacceptable because it has a huge impact on the local neighbourhood. So I'm afraid I can't support this.
Councillor Lee.
Yes, I welcome the conditioning on the hedge to soften the impact of the extension, but I can't help but agree with Councillor Laming that the scale and mass, I think, is a step too far, and I think it's I think it's unfortunate that the VDS is not guiding us. We're not interpreting it in terms of no gate, because I think that's inappropriate. It's out of character for the area, and it will be visual. And I think that might just set an unnecessary incremental change, a precedent for other developments, perhaps. So I'm really conflicted about this. Thank you.
Well, if I could make my contribution, I do think that we've added 2 very strong conditions on ecology and lighting. And I think that the gate issue, I don't think it's reasonable for us to expect people not to have a gate of some description. The fact that it's well recessed into the driveway to allow cars to wait whilst the gate opens means that it's unless you're almost adjacent, it's going to be, whatever the gate is, it's going to be very difficult to see it as you're driving past, which is basically the impact on the area. I don't think it's out of scale. I mean, there's a lot of large extended houses, including the immediate neighbours, to be fair, although I do accept and understand their concerns. And I think that we've looked at those very carefully and come to the conclusion that whilst there is a level of harm, it's not such that we could turn down this application. I do think that the materials are important, and that also is going to be looked at again by our officers and considered so that they are in keeping. So I'm perfectly happy that this application should go forward with those amended and extended conditions. Yes. Members, any further contributions to debate? No? Councillor Pett, did you have a contribution to debate?
Just a very quick one. Can we hear what that condition is going to be on the gate, please?
We've got 4 actually.
So yeah, to summarise the recommendation, it would be as set out with the addition of 4 conditions. 1 is to require ecological enhancements, such as to be submitted to us prior to any further build above the slab level. I'm recommending, and our standard, secondly, our standard dark night skies condition also in those Velux windows. Thirdly, details of the external appearance of the sliding door approved. I just googled it actually. There's loads of options with different materials and various sort of private, semi-private options for how much you can see through gates. And lastly, details of materials of the gates and the walls as well. So we're looking at the type of brick with the idea to recess that corner of that hedge as much as possible. That's what we're recommending as it currently stands, Chair. Thank you.
So with those improved and additional conditions, can I see all those in favour of the officer recommendation to approve this application?
That's 4, Chair.
And those against?
4, Chair.
And abstentions?
1.
Okay, so my casting vote is in favour of approving this application. So that application is approved. We'll now break for coffee until, what time is it now? Gosh, 11:25. Thank you. Right. So following our short break, we now move on to the next item on today's Planning Committee agenda, item number 8, which is at Forest Edge, Solomon's Lane in Sherrill Heath. And our presenting officer is Marge Ballinger. Good morning, Marge. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. This application is to regularize a previous application that was allowed, the extension was allowed under permitted development. Oh, try that again. The site is located on Solomon's Lane in between Waltham Chase and Sherrill High Street, which I think is Gravel Hill on the right, I believe. Yes. And this is a closer view of the site and the dwelling in situ of the land surrounding it within the site's ownership. The dwelling became a lawful dwelling in 1999, as it used to be part of the residential curtilage of the building in front, which is Longworth. And then other elements about this is there's a public right-of-way path across the road, and this is approximately 64 meters away from the proposal site. And along the side, there's other residential dwellings here, a grazing and or agricultural field to the north and east, and other farm and residential dwelling here to the further east. And this is the previous bungalow before its PD extension. It's the footprint of a 2-bedroom bungalow, and it was made with brick and concrete roof tiles. And as I mentioned, the application was approved for Class AA of the General Permitted Development Order previously in 2022. And the application was subject to the prior approval process. And this slide represents what was submitted and approved along the top, the floor plans, and the plans below are what was built. And these are the Class AA elevations up the top here compared to what was built. A condition of Class AA is to match the existing materials as what was previously to ground floor. The changes here are, you'll see on the next slide, are the change of materials and some window and door alterations in the rear elevations here compared to what was built. There was a condition added on the Class AA application to obscure glaze these upper first floor rooms and stairwell with a glazing film or obscure glass. And this condition is brought over into the current application. And these are photos of the as-built dwelling. Again, the height and the extension meets the requirements of what was proposed and built under Class AA. The use of materials of hanging tile and adding light render to the ground floor has been built, although the building is yet to be finished or occupied. This is just a demonstration of what it is currently. Photo 1 is the front-facing elevation where there will be additional parking and a driveway eventually toward the front as is the existing. Photo 2 is the rear elevation, showing some of the alterations of roof lights and the windows and door alterations from the previous. Photo 3 is the west elevation, and there's an additional driveway access to the boundary to the dwelling on the further west. And photo 4 is just demonstrating the gap of the side garden to the field adjacent. And this is the area shown immediately surrounding the dwelling. Photos 5 and 6 are taken from the proposal site looking back toward Longworth, which is located south of the dwelling. Photo 7 here demonstrates there's Littleton in the background of the dwelling located east. And then photo 8 is the view across the fields toward Forest Road north. Photos 9 and 10 are views of the access into the site. You see Longworth here on the right, and the house is, the proposal site is accessed by the lane here. And you can see the views of it from another access to Longworth here in the back on this photo as well, on number 10. Photo 11 is a view from Sullivan's Lane back toward the proposal site outlined here. And this is a view taken from the adjacent dwellings, Littleton and I believe Sweet Pea. And this is just a demonstration of there are some other materials in the road used. This one has light render and I believe hanging tile to part of its elevation walls. And photo 12 is a view from Solomon's Lane with the high hedgerow. It's difficult to see, but it is highlighted, I believe. Got something, yeah, there it is in the back. And this slide is just to demonstrate the right-of-way path and its potential impacts to the right-of-way usage. I had to use Google Maps because the hedgerow was too high to actually see the entrance to the right-of-way path located here on the left, and the access to the proposal site is to the right. Photo 14 is taken from the right-of-way path looking back toward the proposal site, which is shown here behind Longworth in the background. And photo 15 is just another aerial view demonstrating the distance of the pathway to the actual dwelling. And obviously this is a photo of prior to its being built and extended. And these are views taken from longer distances in both private and public land. Photo 16 was taken from Longworth's first floor window across its own outbuilding back toward the proposal. And this is the front elevation from looking at the back. Again, this is on private land. Photo 17 was taken across the field east from dwelling or its drive along Highfield. And I'm considering this to be private land, as this field is also considered private land. Photo 18 is a view from north on Forest Row. It's just a Google image as it was raised slightly higher than the existing hedgerow, so it's located in its background here. And this is just, photo 19 is just a close-up image of the dwelling across the field. And to conclude, the first floor extension size and scale is in compliance with Schedule 2, Part 1, Class AA of the GDPO. And it is considered that the proposed use of materials is not considered to have a harmful impact on the character of the area and its semi-rural setting. With the glazing condition in place along the first floor windows toward the front, the proposal is not considered to have an adverse impact on residential amenities of local residences. This application is recommended for permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marge. Right, we now move to public speaking. And we have two objectors, James Allman and Derek Morgan. Good morning, gentlemen. And you will have 3 minutes between you. So have you decided how you're going to sort out who's speaking? You're speaking. Lovely. And you've got a presentation as well, I believe. Marge, is that? Yeah. Okay, so when you're ready, if you'd like to.
Yeah.
You haven't? Yes, that's what I mean. We're going to see your photos that you've sent us to show us. Yes, thank you very much. And yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks. The reason I'm here is it's relatively simple. That this building has an approval. It was approved under permitted development order. So why are we thinking about changing the rules, and does this not set a precedent for any development in the village and for permitted development orders generally? Permitted development orders require the use of similar or matching materials, which the original application noted. why was that never enforced? This building went up in about August last year. Had the materials in this retrospective application been proposed in the original permitted development order application, they would have been refused. If a building of this size and scale with these materials had been subject to a standalone application, it wouldn't have been permitted, as it's larger than the allowance under small dwellings in the countryside policy. So we seem to have a conundrum here, and we seem to be acting retrospectively in changing the rules. I'm also concerned, we've mentioned before the village plan. This palette of materials is not included in the village plan. It seems to me that by agreeing to this change, we're disregarding that plan and the views of the community that I think that goes to represent. I'd be also worried that any change or deviation from the village plan to a modern palette would set a precedent and example for other future developments. I just noted one comment about conditions. Can I just be a little bit particular? The condition regarding obscure glazing. I live in Longworth, so I'm directly affected. And there is a little caveat to the glazing condition, which talks about stained glass as well as being an option. I'd ask that personally that could be struck out as, or it's, I'd be worried that you can't prove any level of obscurity from a handmade stained glass option. Other things to note, the construction management plan, this was never submitted. It's now been disregarded. So I think the basis of my concern is that the building is very visible. The National Planning Policy Framework refers to beautiful quality buildings. This appears to go against it. Sorry, Derek, do you want to say anything?
I think this building to ignore the permission actually sets a dangerous precedent.
Okay, thank you very much. If you gentlemen just wait and see if you've got any questions of clarification. Members? No, in fact we don't. So if you could switch off the microphones and return to your seats. Thank you very much indeed. You've made your case very clearly. Thank you. We now have Councillor Sam Charles from the Parish Council. Good morning, Sam.
Councillors.
And you, as you know, have 3 minutes from when you start speaking, and you know how to switch on the microphone. So. Thank you.
Sheffield Parish Council strongly opposes the current application, citing of non-compliance with the original conditions and significant deviations from the intended design that was meant to harmonise with the neighbouring properties. The council asserts that an applicant has disregarded condition 2 materials, condition 6 windows, leading to the development of starkly contrast with the surroundings and fails to meet the original stipulations. The primary attention lies with the applicant's failure to adhere to the original proposed set forth, ensure development of the blend seamlessly with the local environment. Condition 2 specifies the use of materials that match the complete exist properties. While condition 6 ensures windows designed for consistent with neighbouring structures. These conditions have been seemingly ignored, resulting in structure that stands out negatively to the community. The Parish Council and several local residents consider the house an eyesore due to its contrasting size, shape and colour. Unlike the neighbouring properties, the new development is prominent and noticeable, disrupting the visual harmony of the area. Its use of black fake tiles further exaggerates the issue, creating a blot on the landscape that detracts from the overall look of the locality. The village design statement also emphasised the importance of maintaining the visual integrity of the harmony of the new development, with the existing structure. The house, as it stands, blatantly violates the principle, further supporting the parish council opposition. Sheffield Parish Council believe this application is an attempt to legalise non-compliance with the original planning condition. The development failure to integrate with neighbouring properties that is stark visual prominence makes it unsuitable for the area. The Parish Council urges the Planning Authority to reject this application and enforce compliance with the original conditions to preserve the character and the appearance of the local thing. The applicant is directly conflict with policies DM15, DM16 and DM23 of the Winchester Local Part 2 Plan. These policies collectively mandate that for any development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have questions or clarification of the Parish Council? No? All right, many thanks indeed.
Thank you
You
very
can
much.
just switch off the microphone as you go, Sam. Sam? Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Right, I think that's the end of the public contributions. Marge, do you have anything to add before we go to councillors' questions?
Yes, please. Just wanted to clarify a few things. This application has been submitted to regularize the materials use from what was allowed for under permitted development, and that's what we're here to assess. And when something is built under Class AA, we don't have the ability to assess it under our own local and national policies, because it is a national policy. Our local policy DM3 is for small dwellings in the countryside. With Class AA, unfortunately, we don't have that authority to judge the size, but it has been established, it has been built under the scale of what was permitted. And I just wanted to note that although I don't have a photo, there are other buildings nearby that have dark timber cladding within the area. And what's important with this application are the visual views from the public realm, not so much from private land. So these are just a few photos showing what it would be seen from Solomon's Lane or nearby. And as far as the stained glass goes, the stained glass would be proposed into the stairwells, which is not a habitable room, but just to comply with what was conditioned under Class AA, the condition was carried over into this application as well. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
Okay, if I could just ask, can you just explain why the house was built as it is and not according to the approved permitted development that conditioned similar materials? Have you had an information from the applicant about why they did it completely different?
No, the only thing I can anticipate is perhaps it was not quite understood, that condition. I do have the owners here in the lobby to answer that question. As I'm assessing what's before me, whether or not how it was met, I didn't delve into that.
No, that's not a planning matter anyway. I was just interested.
Okay.
Okay, well, so the actual extra floor on top of the bungalow was done under permitted development, national policy, government rules. So we had nothing to do with that as a planning authority. But we're just looking at the fact that it's not similar materials, which is what was originally agreed, and the extra roof lights. Is that right? Yeah, okay. Right, well, bearing that in mind, members, do we have questions to our officer, Councillor Laming?
Yes, could our legal advisor inform us what AA is? Because I haven't come across that before.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. It's probably a fair question to understand what the permitted development right actually entailed and what's happened in this situation. So the permitted development right grants plan and permission by operation of law rather than an express grant of plan and permission, which you
and officers deal with on a daily basis. So by virtue of the law, a planning permission is granted, in effect, what we call the PD right. Now, the PD right actually says the enlargement of a dwelling house consisting of the construction of A, up to 2 additional stories where the existing dwelling house consists of 2 or more stories, or B, 1 additional story where the existing dwelling house consists of 1 story. So what you've got here is obviously they've gone up in accordance with the PD right under AAB. Now, this regime is subject to a light touch approach, i.e. it's not a full planning application, it's what we call a prior approval process. So the potential applicant submits an application exercising this PD right, and then the law allows, if you like, a light touch approach to these applications. And it goes on to say that obviously you've got to submit certain particulars before the PD right is granted. Suffice it to say, they had prior approval approved, hence what has been built out. The issue is what's been built doesn't respect, in effect, the conditions of the PD right. Now, one of the conditions of the PD right says development is permitted by Class AA, subject to the conditions as set out. And it says the conditions in this subparagraph are as follows. The material used in any exterior work must be of a similar appearance to those used in the construction of the exterior of the existing dwelling house. So effectively what you've got here is something that was not in accordance with that condition, which has been put on as a matter of law. So the property's been built, it's gone up, the materials are not in accordance with the PD condition. So what happens now is the law allows a developer to submit a retrospective planning application. There's nothing against the law. You can build tomorrow without planning permission, and I can submit retrospectively. That's not to be frowned upon. That is an approach. That is the law. You can consider retrospective applications. So what you have is an application here to regularise those materials.
Thank you. That helps a lot.
Councillor Pett.
So just for clarification, what you just said, and that was really clear, thank you. The applicant could have asked to use those materials in that previous application. Is that correct or not?
Yes, so as part of the conditions, procedure for application for prior approval, the application must be accompanied by a written description of the proposed development, including details of any works proposed. B, a plan, which is to identify the scale and shows direction of north, and so on. A plan which also shows existing and proposed elevation to the dwelling house. And let me just see if the conditions. Before the beginning of the development, the developer must apply to the local planning authority for prior approval as to 3AI, impact on the amenity of the adjoining premises, the external appearance of the dwelling house, including the design and architectural features of AA, the principal elevation, and BB, any side elevation. A report for the management and construction of the development. The development must be completed with a period of 3 years. So there's a whole raft, and the planners effectively go through making sure that all of these prior approval conditions have been met, because they're stipulated by law. Has it submitted a plan showing the size and scale? Is it showing a direction north arrow? Does it show the siting of the dwelling house in terms of the east side elevations that front a highway, and so on and so forth? So the planners do the light touch approach. Essentially what you've got here is it's not complying with the conditions that are set out in law. The materials used in any exterior work must be of similar appearance to those used in the construction of the exterior of the dwelling house, and they do not match.
So what we have to decide today is whether there is harm and balance the fact that it's an existing building with any potential visual harm from the public highway. So we have to do that, and we have to look at all the other buildings around and agricultural buildings and the setting and everything else. So that's what we have to do today, and our officer has done that on our behalf and looked around and assessed the application, and in her view because of its situation and because of other agricultural and other buildings in the vicinity, and the fact that the dark grey is recessive and all the rest of it, as is in your report, she is recommending it for approval. So that is what we have to look at today. So do we have questions on the report for our officer, please? Councillor Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify with the officer. You mentioned there were some other buildings. Was it agricultural buildings, was it? Or was it residential buildings that had a black finish? I think you said timber, if I remember correctly. So is that the case, and how widespread is that in the area? That's my first question. And then my next question is the issue of the VDS again. You know, is this applicant just ignoring the VDS? And given the amount of effort that goes into trying to get that right, I'd like to hear the officer's views on that as well, please.
Thank you, Councillor. We can go back to this photo here. The building that had black cladding on it, I couldn't determine. There's been some change of use to some of the agricultural buildings for residential purposes, but the one I think that was more prominent is located here, so it is close by. And black timber cladding is quite common for agricultural buildings. And given the location of the dwelling is back set off the road, it's not quite visible. So that's what we have to balance, whether or not the materials used are appropriate from the public realm. And as far as the Shedfield Village Design Statement, I heard the words, it's not up to planners or policy to dictate what materials are to be used. And that's why some of the wording in the permitted development order says it must be of similar appearance, giving a potential developer a little leeway on what they choose. So my job at this stage is to view whether or not what has been built is considered inappropriate for the area, and obviously I agreed that it would be appropriate given its position back set off the road. And it's my opinion, again, my opinion doesn't weigh much, but to me it looks more like an agricultural type barn when viewed from a distance. But again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's just that's my opinion of how I based it upon the character of the area, since it's semi-residential as well as rural.
Thank you.
Can I ask that in the vicinity there are other white rendered buildings as well, aren't there? So the white rendering on the ground floor is not uncommon in the area. I think I stood drove past and walked up the drive and stood next to the house and looked across the fields, and there's definitely another cottage across the fields that's white rendered. I just wondered how much else there is in the close vicinity.
The house if this is the proposal site, the house 2 doors down is shown here, and I believe it has light render, and it might have red clay hanging tile on some of its elevation. And then further to the east along Solomon's Lane is another dwelling. I believe it has light render gates toward the front of the road, so that's very obvious.
Any more questions on the whole report? Councillor Small.
Yes, thank you. We're also considering the skylights, is that right? Or have I got that completely wrong? Because that wasn't in the original.
I believe so, yes.
Yes.
Do they light extra? Are they just extra light for the upstairs, or is there an extra floor in the loft?
No, those are just the ceilings to the bedrooms and the bathrooms. I think these are bathrooms.
Councillor Lee.
Bedrooms.
Perhaps some legal advice, please. If we regularize this, what does that mean in terms of setting a precedent?
So in setting a precedent, it's not really a legal issue. If you regularise this, it gets planning permission today, and what is built is lawful. As to whether or not it will set a precedent is a planning matter, not a legal matter. So how a planning officer approaches what is built and whether or not that sets a precedent will be dependent upon what comes forward in the vicinity, opposite, adjacent to, next to, and without knowing the context or what scheme is coming forward. You're asking me to look into a potential crystal ball and say, is it going to be a strong precedent or not? It's more of a planning officer issue rather than a legal issue. Yes, it could set a precedent if someone decides to build something right next door or opposite. But you're asking me what is the length of a piece of string, and I'm afraid I can't answer.
And as always, we just have to look at the application that is before us. And we are always told actually we don't set precedents. We're looking at the application. This is the decision being made for this particular application. Councillor Pett?
So, Mr. Lucas, yeah, going on from that, have I got this right then? Under the permitted development order, it would have had to have been built brick. That hasn't happened. So put to one side, something has been built, a retrospective planning application has been made, and therefore we're looking purely at a planning application for a building that looks like that. Is that
so
correct?
If I correct your first statement, the law didn't say it has to be brick. The law says the materials used in any exterior work must be of a similar appearance to those used in the construction of the exterior of the existing dwelling house. So the test is similar in appearance, okay, not exact. So you're in the realms of degree, fact and degree. Evidence, look at what you've got compared to what was. So fact and degree. In terms of going up, the law allows, in principle, to go up, as I've explained in terms of the permitted development right. There is a breach here of the condition in law in that it was arguably not in similar appearance to what was existing, hence why the schemes come in as a retrospective application before you today. But that would create a fallback. So let's take out of the realms how this particular development looks. It could go up and it could be matching appearance. We wouldn't be here today because it would be exactly in concordance with the PD right. So the principle of going up is sound as a matter of law. Take away the fact of roof lights because you're also considering roof lights. So in principle, the fallback will be it can go up as long as it was of similar appearance to the existing. Because it's not in similar appearance to the existing and arguably in breach, the issue is you've got a fresh planning application. Not to do with the PD right, it's an application on its own four corners, as it were. But in your balance, into your cauldron that you've got to assess and mix together is, one, there's a fallback in law here. And two, what is it that you've got? You've got something that is not in accordance with the law. So what you do is you look at it in terms of the development plan. What do the policies say about this? What does the village design statement say about this? And what are the officer's conclusions about this? And you put all of that into the mix and you come to your decision.
Yeah, so absolutely, I get that. If for argument's sake this were to be refused today, then their fallback position would be a two-storey dwelling of similar appearance, arguable, as you say, and nothing.
In terms of if you were to refuse, there would be implications, of course. That would obviously send some direction of travel to the applicant. They might want to resubmit with new materials and a new palette retrospectively again, or the officers will take a view about how we go forward with this particular site.
Councillor Lee.
Some more advice, please. So we're trying to identify the harm with respect to the public realm. Is that right? And whether that harm is demonstrably unacceptable or potentially might be acceptable. And it's the private impact is of no consequence.
So the PD right allows to go up. And as I've already explained, when you apply for the PD right, it's subject to a light touch process called prior approval or prior notification. That light touch process includes, I think, for this particular right, an assessment of amenity. That issue is gone. that principle's already been set. So what was required under prior approval and that assessment by the planning officers who granted the prior approvals, any harm to what the prior approval required, i.e. site and design, layout, amenity, access, they're gone, because the fact is the prior approval was granted. That was considered. But what you're left with is something which is technically in breach of the conditions in terms of materials under the condition as a matter of law of that PD right. Going back to your first statement, what are you assessing, i.e. amenity and public right of way? You're assessing here the proposal against the development plan and any material considerations.
Right, if there are no more questions for our officer, we move to debate.
The roof, the Class AA does not stipulate that you can't have roof lights, but it does have a condition on there that you have to build to whatever plans were submitted. The plans that were submitted and approved, shown here, did not include roof lights. So that's another reason why this application is being considered.
We're just seeing if we can add the national park lighting condition.
1.7 kilometers.
It's too far for that. Okay, so we're assessing the harm basically. Okay, so debate, members, and I'll kick things off because I went to see this and I was. There is no doubt that it is, when you're standing right next to it, somewhat incongruous, I have to say. But then most new builds are, until they soften into the landscape with landscaping and all the rest of it. Actually, I forgot to ask, are we going to condition removal of the storage container? Do we need to? Because there's a storage container right next to it. We have conditioned that before, haven't we?
In this case, we're just considering the visual appearance really, and to condition the removal of that, you'd have to sort of.
Well, that does impact on the visual appearance, doesn't it?
Not the appearance, just of materials. So I don't think it would be particularly reasonable.
Well, anyway, let's hope it goes. Has it gone? Oh, okay, good. Okay, so so I went to see it and I had a good look round the immediate area, Solomon's Lane, famous to us planners. We've been there a lot, and whilst it is very different from the original bungalow, in fact, it does more look like a sort of a barn at the end of the, the end of the lane, and as such, certainly the sort of top story, as a very recessive dark grey, and as you've seen from the photographs, it does disappear into the landscape quite quickly. The ground floor being rendered, as I say, is not dissimilar to other residential buildings in the neighbourhood. So I considered that whilst initially it was a bit of a shock, I don't consider that the level of harm is such that I would turn down this application. I think I will be supporting the officer's recommendation. Members, further debate? Councillor Laming.
Thank you. I find that listening to what AA is, that we wouldn't have accepted that in the first place because it's not brick construction anymore. I think that looking at the building, it is out of character and out of keeping in the area, and I think that I would be inclined to refuse this application.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. I tend to agree with the officer's opinion in regards to its appearance looking similar to a barn from the public realm, as displayed in the photos, and having visited the site itself as well. So I'm minded to support the application. I do understand that it's quite difficult, especially through the objectors and the parish council speaking, in that you know, there is a sort of principal objection into the extension, but that is not something that we are able to have a view on today. If we were to refuse the application, that would still be there. They would have to just revert to a brick facade, but the building would still be there, and it'd still be a two-storey building in the countryside, which is my understanding. So I'm minded to support the application as it does resemble a barn from the public realm.
Councillor Ashwell.
Thank you, Chair. I think I do know the area well. The visual impact on the street scene, I think, is just too much. I think if they'd stuck to the original plans where it should have just been brick and not what they've got now, I would have accepted it. But I can't support what's there at the moment, so I won't be. I'll be objecting.
Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair. While the form, the scale and the massing are as agreed under the Class AA prior approval route, I feel that the decision of the applicant to finish the development in white render and grey hanging wall and roof tiles in place of the brick and slate of the previous and surrounding dwelling is most regrettable. They say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Well, as a beholder, I see no beauty here. In fact, all I behold is a dull, uninspiring grey box, an eyesore. Had this been located on the road frontage, I would have had no hesitation in refusing permission on the grounds of policies DM 15, 16, 23 and CP 13, in harm caused to the distinctiveness, character and the appearance of the local area and the adverse impact on the street scene. However, as it is located behind other dwellings and hidden away a full 52 metres back from the road frontage, I will reluctantly support the officer's recommendation and hold my nose. Thank you.
Councillor Pett.
Thank you, Chair. I think for the third time this morning, we're back to the role of village design statements, aren't we? Looking at this now, yes, had it come originally to a planning committee here, I suspect it would not have been granted permission because it quite clearly isn't in empathy with the village design statement at all. The fact it's there, I agree with you that it's very much a debate on how strongly we object to the view of this from the street. It is quite a way set back from Solomon's Lane, so therefore that is consequentially diminished. I agree. I'm also holding my nose, but I think I have little leeway to do anything other than support the officer's recommendation. I would just say, though, that it really galls when something like this comes up, that, you know, had it been the original application for this site, I think it would have gone the other way.
We are where we are, Councillor Pett, as you say. Right, I think we've come to the decision. So this application is recommended to us by our officer for permission. So can I see all those in favour of this application?
Before 5, Chair.
6.
6. Sorry, 4 against. Sorry, that's.
Can we do that again, please? Can you put your hands nice and clearly in the air? Those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Those against?
1, 2, 3. 3, Chair.
Okay, so that application is approved. Thank you very much, members. That's the end of today's formal business. If members could just hold on for a second at the end of the meeting, I just want to have a quick chat about our informal. If you could stop the recording, please, Claire.